Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. Of course, we're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill on a Monday. DB, what's going on, man?
You are looking live. Good morning, man. How are things?
You know, we're just we're chugging along. We're doing good.
Yeah. Did you put your trash out? No, you're not a Monday guy.
No, I'm not. I'm a Wednesday guy.
I'm a Monday guy. And I saw the old management truck rolling around in the parking lot over here. So it's a good thing I live close. Although they don't get to the neighborhood until it seems like around. It's not a morning neighborhood.
Oh, it's afternoon?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, usually if I don't put it out before the show, I'll at least miss garbage.
Yeah.
Recycling, sometimes I can still get out.
So our recycling is every other week. Is that everybody?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
But if I
like how you say it like I should know. I just figured that out like 2 months ago.
that it's every other week.
Yeah. And I had to ask probably what would be the equivalent to an 8-year-old. She came to drop off something for Zoe, and I was like, hey, have one. Does the trash come today? Yeah, I don't know. My grandpa died. Like, oh, you're significantly smarter than me.
Well,
maybe.
To be fair, I can only keep track of, like when we've got snow or a holiday or something.
Yeah.
The only reason I know when my trash is delayed is because my mom will send me a text. And whether there's like a weather situation or.
She has some similarities to my mom.
Yeah.
I think she does.
You sent me a screenshot this weekend. And I was like, yeah, I think our moms might be the same person.
What was that? The Ravi one.
Yeah.
That's a little weird.
But it was kind of funny. She's like, be careful. There's
like you didn't even have anything to do with the text. Like, I don't even know why she had to include you in that. I thought she was just telling me to, drive safe. I spent a lot of time, man, in the L-Town.
Yeah, you were in Lincoln a lot this weekend.
Yes.
What were you? I mean, you had state wrestling.
So the wrestling was here. That was
that's right.
Friday.
Yeah.
And I recorded that, but Nebraska hoops with Penn State.
Yep.
That was early. And I was down with Micah for his games, which were all weekend. And they kind of play in that knockoff facility, which is the old soccer complex off of North 70th.
You call it the knockoff facility?
Oh yeah.
What does that mean?
Super makeshift.
Okay. Yeah.
They've changed the floors a couple of times, and they get a lot into a little. They had youth roller derby in the building this weekend.
That's weird.
You have no idea. I'm not even gonna. Is
it kind of like the old OSA building where it was kind of like felt a little makeshift?
So this
you know
is
what I mean?
Odd, but that was the most eclectic, different sporting group I've ever. Like people had their face painted
for the roller derby.
And mismatched clothes, and there were like a couple of Harley Quinn people, like makeup and pigtails. I was like, "Is this a thing?"
What's happening?
But I'm out of it, so I don't feel qualified to like.
Yeah, it's not a circle I run in.
No, it was definitely different.
Its own deal.
Yeah, and then districts were set. I was all in on baseball. Still can't. I jinxed Nebraska on Friday because I said, hey, this is how they want to play. Close games, win the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning. This is just going to be who they are. My buddy, degenerate Aaron, he's still distraught because they're striking out too much. I keep telling him it's early, but I don't know. 7 of your first 9 got seeded yesterday. I was like, hey, you probably better get some productive outs.
Not what you want to see.
But, and then, they lost late to Oklahoma. So I'm like, well, are they going to win the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning? And then I was, I didn't leave Lincoln yesterday until 5:15, maybe 5:20. So I'm watching wrestling in the concession area.
Yeah.
And I was smart enough to bring my AirPods this time because I never travel with them.
Really?
No, because I'm typically not watching or listening to anything of substance in a building. If I'm at that building, I'm either working or watching that event. So I almost never go to another event to watch a different event. So I actually had my AirPods because it's weird how there's 2 things I'm appalled by that parents don't do better with their kids.
Okay.
Number one, be self-aware when you're on your phone, right? Nobody wants to be in the stands and hear your kid playing Bowling Smash or Crash Bandicoot or anything like that. Like,
yeah, get the headphones on.
Get the headphones on or go someplace else.
Yeah.
Right. The other thing is, why is it like, do parents not, do they like not want their kids to not dribble basketballs like along baselines and stuff when games are going?
Yeah.
Is that Shane? Is that Kowalski? Is that Gran Torino? Or should we be doing something about that?
No, I mean,
because I'm floored at the lack of self-control
because
that kids have.
Inevitably, that ball ends up on the floor.
Yeah, and there were two parents, bless their hearts. I know them, but I don't know them. We have a mutual friend. They're from the same hometown.
Okay.
So he introduced himself. And on Sunday, you could just tell, like, good people. On Sunday, they have a little guy too, like a younger guy.
Mm-hmm.
So every time he's along the baseline, I say, "Hey, hold the ball."
Mm-hmm.
And in my head, I wanted to look over and I'll give him a thumbs up. Good job.
Just dap him up.
But maybe I'm the anal one. So
no, I think that's a reasonable one.
Yeah, I was all in on wrestling because Aaron he made me mad in the morning. He's like, I'm going to put the over-under wins at, and he picked a number, and it was not very encouraging. But, in his defense, it was Penn State, and we did just watch what they did to Iowa a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
So I was like all in, and then I almost had an aneurysm watching my guy Lenny Pinto get a little reckless towards the end of his match. So it was like, and I was telling you, it was a busy sports weekend, but I don't feel like there was a lot of productive sports.
Yeah, not that
baseball was kind of important.
Yeah.
Wrestling, I felt like, okay, top 6 matchup. You don't see that often in duels.
Mm-hmm.
Creighton was big, but it was so convincing.
Yeah.
For a team that was only like a 2.5 point favorite, like they dropped the hammer on Butler in the second half.
Yeah.
And I felt so bad. I was texting Coach Rhule. He's like, he's not even in the building. But I'm like, I was surprised Penn State laid down against Nebraska. And so I thought we would get a better, because they're kind of pesky.
Yeah, they're annoying.
But no problem.
That's kind of what they try and do. Like, that's their whole thing, is just to annoy you into not playing your game.
Yeah.
Right. And Nebraska, to their credit, in the second half, did a really good job of not letting that bother them. But the Creighton one, it was a super convincing win because, first of all, Creighton plays terrible at Hinkle.
Yeah.
Almost always.
As John Bishop told me, they hadn't won in the date with daylight in that building, and I don't know how long.
Been a long time.
Yeah.
Been a long time. But that second half for them as well, that might be the best we've seen them play in a month, maybe longer. That was pretty impressive. And heading into UConn tomorrow, which you've been adamant that they're winning that game tomorrow.
100%.
And I actually was maybe the most disappointing, uneventful game of the weekend was UConn Marquette, right? And you were high on the Marquette being an imposter.
Yeah, like I don't like Marquette. Like I don't get it.
I don't like them in the sense of
imposter was a little strong. Fair. I just said that's not, that ranking is way inflated. And I've been saying that.
You have.
I don't get it.
To be fair, that kind of felt, I mean, maybe it's a state of Wisconsin thing. When Wisconsin was at 6, that felt inflated.
I agreed with you there.
And then Marquette at 4. I think both of those teams are somewhere between 10 and 18 in actuality, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah. It's gonna be a tough bracket.
Yeah, it is.
It is gonna be a tough bracket.
But I was actually kind of pleased for Creighton's sake with how that game went, because if Marquette knocks off UConn's not losing in Omaha on Tuesday. Yeah. It's not happening, right?
Yeah.
So them not only beating Marquette, but doing so in a way that maybe they're feeling a little bit too good about themselves, I actually like better for Creighton.
And they'll be down. The crowd, I mean, they'll get 18K. It'll be.
I think
it'll be electric in that
near
one.
A sellout already. Yeah. If I remember, I get the
or 17-8 or whatever they get.
Yeah, I don't know what the actual number is, but that'll be tomorrow. I'm sure we'll talk more about that. coming up later in the show, because we're going to have our guy, Nicholas Allen Bahe, at 9 o'clock. We will talk to him, I'm sure, about some Big East basketball as well as just college basketball in general. At 8:45, we're going to talk to Frankie Fidler, Omaha men's basketball.
How about getting William Kyle III and Frankie Fidler in the same building the other night? Not a great – Omaha's got to find a way to close that out. They've got to find a way to – but like some of my friends that have been going to Baxter, that's a good environment.
Baxter?
Yeah, Mike, Mike, his coach, used to play there, and he was just talking about being in the arena and how he likes it. And I was like, Tarp, I was like, it's a good ticket price. You're gonna get good seating, and they've got a chance.
They do have a chance.
I'd have felt a lot better had they gotten the other night, because I think they had to cut it to 2. And then you have to have some things go your way, but I think South Dakota State was a slight fave in that one.
I didn't look.
So it wasn't like an upset, obviously, when you're at the top of the summit. But I think Omaha, they got to find a way to win that game.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to be an NCAA tournament team, that's a game you have to figure out how to get. Omaha has a few regular season games left before they get into the Summit League tournament, which will be in the second technically weekend of March here. So I mean, we're getting up on it here in terms of
I'd like to see those guys make a postseason run.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and that's where you're at anyway. You're going to have to make a postseason. I mean, you have to win the Summit League
see Frankie get hot
to get in, right?
Yeah.
And when you have a guy like Frankie Fidler, you can make a run. Like, you can win 3 games in 3 days, and anything can happen at that point, right?
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see in a couple weeks here as they wrap up their regular season. And you kind of just want to, I mean.
So I spent next to like no time at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of sad.
Well, it's one of those weekends,
It's okay. It's going to be busier. I mean, district's coming up. Westside won't play until Saturday. They got a top 3 seed. And I was worried about them last week because they played 5 and 6 in the state. They went North Central back-to-back. A lot of narratives behind those. I'm like, you guys are playing for the 3. Like, you can't afford to stub your toe. And sometimes they have a tendency to – they can kind of take their foot off the gas a little bit. They've been pretty dialed in. They only have the 1 bad loss this year. No shame in losing to Bellevue West twice and Millard North.
No.
Both teams have the A1 and the A2.
Yeah.
Respectively. No, but they had the bad loss to Southeast.
Wasn't that when Southeast was kind of on a heater, though? They had kind of a
they were awful.
Okay. All right.
There's no.
That's fair.
It's a bad basketball game, and so that's going on, and I was happy about wrestling. Couple monsters.
Guy Tyson Terry won his 3rd straight.
Yeah. So Micah asked me on, was it Saturday? Oh, yeah, because we were in the car in Lincoln, and he's like, who's the most dominating? No, this is how it started. In typical Micah Benning fashion, he's mad wanting to defend Tyson because he must have been on something where people were referencing his age. So we're on the interstate. It's 9:50 maybe.
They were referencing Tyson's age?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's like, do people not understand Tyson used to be young for his – because, I mean, he's grown up with the territory, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, we're like at mile marker 426. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, oh, my
gosh. Is that the Ashland exit? Ashland Greenwood?
Yeah. I'm like, he's like, gosh.
You hop off and get some antiques?
So he's like mad. And I'm like, yeah, I said, it's whatever. I'm like, you can't get bothered by that. But he made a great point. He goes, he was winning as a freshman. Did you want him to wait another year to stomp a hole in these guys? And I was like, yeah, you tell him. Like, So then he was asking me about most dominant runs in high school. And I wasn't even thinking wrestling. But I was like, well, there was such and such, and there was such and such.
The first thing that popped in my mind was like Central in the 2010s when however many
100%.
in a row in badminton and boys basketball.
But what he's doing is, especially in the heavyweight division, he may have to cut to 285 next year.
That's what you said. Like, and you know, he's a lean 285.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know,
well, he's constantly doing something.
Yeah. He's always in a sport,
you know,
right?
He's good kid. So, and he minds his own business, so he doesn't have a lot of wild extracurriculars where he doesn't take care of his body.
Yeah.
You know, so
is he a track guy too? Does he do? No. So will he do anything in the spring?
He'll train.
Well, right, but not.
But competitively. He used to wrestle, like in the summers
spring too. Yeah.
So heading in, but he, I think he wants to just focus on
football.
Sport. Yeah, he always finds something to be motivated by.
Well, I mean, there's a lot to be motivated by.
I was happy. I Sauter conveniently didn't text me back, but remember how he was giving me a hard time? I told him that girls state wrestling could come down to the wire, and he's like, "Well, Grand Island pulled away on Friday night."
Sounds about right.
Westside had a bad night on Friday, but their coach
came back and won it.
Bob Mulligan, yeah. And he's such a he's got an infectious personality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's constantly positive, and he's breathing life into things and people, right? And so they found a way to get it done. It's a crazy weekend.
Is it totally out of pocket to ask if Tyson could kind of pull off the Nash thing that we're seeing? Is that something he would even be interested in?
I don't want to speak for him.
But you know him a little
I
bit.
say no.
Okay.
He may get
just wants to focus on football.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you got to think he has double dipped and done this since he's been 5 years old.
Yeah, but he kind of seems like
he travels in the summer. He's national, like he's always doing something. I think he may just
breathe.
Just my gut,
That's fair.
Just my gut.
That's fair.
Plus, I think he wants to play defense, and so that will take some work.
Okay.
I think people want him to envision him moving over to the offensive side of the ball, and I just don't think that's where
he
his
wants
heart
to
is.
play defense.
Yeah.
I really like linemen that wrestle.
Yeah. So you, me, Dupree, everybody. That's the thing.
Their ability to use their body and leverages is so much better.
Did you see Nash run into a buzzsaw yesterday? He is number one in the country for a reason.
Yeah. And Nash, is his first time wrestling competitively in like 4 years.
Penn State's depth is impressive.
I kind of wonder,
10 out of 12 they've gotten.
And maybe, maybe I'm giving Nash too much credit here, but I kind of wonder if he'd been wrestling this whole time, like where he'd be at.
I don't know. I think he'd tell you he had a higher ceiling in football than wrestling.
That's probably fair.
So,
but he was a hell of a wrestler.
Oh yeah,
coming out, right?
Yeah.
And you've seen it, basically him not miss a beat except for at the very highest level against Iowa and Penn State. Those are his losses.
Yeah.
Those are two of the best wrestling programs in the country.
And they had a chance. There was a lot of pressure for the duel.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But Nebraska, not to go all super heavy wrestling out, as you called it, a niche.
It is. It is
sport the other day. But the curious case of Silas Allred is on my mind a little bit.
Why so?
Well, I think he came in yesterday. He was ranked 13. It's not the second year that I expected from him for a guy but he gives me the sense in watching him the last couple weeks that he's not all the way healthy. So maybe he's battling some things because he looks a little sluggish. But I'm watching Rob yesterday, worry a little bit about his stamina, his third periods. But he had such a long. I'm just happy he's wrestling. To be honest, man. The guy is missing a quarter of his calf and leg.
Yeah.
To come back from that, but Nebraska quietly had run off. I think 5 or 6 in a row heading into yesterday, and Penn State is Penn State, but we'll see. wrestling is hard. Like,
Yeah.
so you asked me about Nash. I don't know. I think the most curious thing about Nash is what will he come back and play football at?
Like what weight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
I've had this discussion with people.
he's shown that he can be explosive and powerful at a much lower weight.
Yeah.
And I don't think he wants to get back to 330 again either.
No, that seems heavy for him. Though
But he was so good a year ago playing at 330, right?
Yeah.
Can you imagine him at a trim 310, 305?
That's what I was thinking. If you get him to like 305, 310, the explosiveness, because how many times did we see Nash last year break through the line and then not be able to finish the sack?
But he, even though in his defense, he was Coach Campbell, all those guys in the strength and conditioning room, but he was able to what I call play a 45s.
Mm-hmm.
Degree angles.
Yeah, cut the angles off.
And he used to be kind of a straight ahead, explosive, get
Yeah.
your hands on you kind of guy. He came such a long way as a big guy.
Oh,
there
sure.
were times he was dominant.
Oh, for sure.
But
my thought
so
is,
with his fitness
Yes.
now better, because I think he kind of wore down as the season went on.
I think so.
And
I think, and my point wasn't to be critical, but I think he could finish more plays at 310 than he can at 330.
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe makes a couple of those plays late against Iowa.
Yeah. Where he's just quick enough then to keep his hands on somebody instead of them slipping out of his grasp.
Hey, can he be a good 40 to 45 snap a game guy?
Yeah. And still keep that power that he had at 330.
Yeah, he'll be interesting to watch.
That'll be an interesting one to watch for sure. We will get more into college hoops over the weekend. Got some questions about NBA All-Star Weekend. Don't worry, we're not going to break down the 211-point performance or anything like that.
I do think we should probably figure out where it is in its professional All-Star.
I do have some
pecking order.
I have some questions about that. And one of those questions is, who is this for?
Certainly better than the Pro Bowl, though.
And why are we doing this? I have some questions. We will get to all that and more coming up next on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. I'm Ravi Lulla, DB here with me.
What's up?
What is going on?
I was just trying to set the lineup.
Well, I did it on air. You're trying to tweet it out.
Yeah, so next time just voice text it into my phone.
Just hold your phone up to me while I'm reading the lineup.
Sometimes that happens where it picks it up.
Yeah. It thinks you're talking to it and you're not.
Just a day, just an ordinary day.
Speaking of the phone listening to us, so we were having a conversation about a product that you had seen on TikTok or whatever.
Yeah.
I had never seen this product on TikTok at all.
Mm-hmm.
You hadn't texted it to me yet.
I didn't even say the name.
You didn't say the name. You just showed it to me on your phone.
Yeah.
And then later that day, it shows up on my TikTok.
That's kind of scary.
No one said the name out loud. It was not sent over any devices. And all of a sudden, this thing I had never seen advertised before, boom, in my face.
It absolutely works.
It freaks me out a little bit.
It absolutely. Now
not the product. I just mean
you have to be willing to go through it.
Yeah.
It's freaking bats.
It's miserable.
Is it a harrowing experience?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It is.
I feel like I need to start it on a Friday after the show.
No, I was going to bring you a couple of samples.
Okay.
Because it's a gut cleanse. And that's exactly what it's going to do.
Yeah. It's just going to clean you out.
So the beautiful thing is you can, at least for me,
mm-hmm.
I think if you research online and stuff, it's about 8 hours. It will kick in at about the 7.5. I've done this 6 times, right? So I'll stagger it. I'll go this time and see this. So I do it because it matters how I eat. And between 7.5 and 8 hours. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Right on the money.
Yep. And it's not ideal real time, but when it's over, it's over.
You feel better?
Yeah. But you better set aside probably 40 minutes every 10 minutes.
Wait,
45 minutes total.
Okay.
But every 10 minutes.
Okay. So give myself like a good hour to be uncomfortable.
100%.
I mean, that's manageable.
100%.
At least it's not like a constant thing for like 3 days.
So I made the mistake. Well, twice last week.
Yeah.
I was up from like 2:20
in the
to
morning.
3:40.
Ooh.
So I knew I had to push it back.
Yeah, you done.
It sounds like a huge waste of time.
But I don't want to be leaving to get ready out of the house and have to start over either.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I was just negotiating. I told myself, I was like, well, if I get up, I can finish watching American Nightmare.
What is that? American Nightmare?
It's like a 3-part episode.
Is that like a murder doc?
No, it was the one where they didn't believe the guy when the intruder broke in and like the swimsuit and the blacked out goggles.
Okay.
And like abducted his girlfriend. And they thought he was part of it. And she just like randomly comes home like 3 days later.
I did. Okay. I saw a preview for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And then
it's like, it sort of seems like Gone Girl a little bit.
So that's what the police department was heckling him about.
Yeah.
So and you know me, like I'm team OPD. Like I was walking the rest Friday, like was it Thursday? No, it was Thursday night.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of the police officers they're like parked in random spots, right? You know, like they're on the corner of Fahey Boulevard and this, that, and the other. And so I was walking towards the Hilton and the police officer, like I gave him the thumbs up because it was cold. I didn't know if his window was cracked because it was dark. He's like, hey, what's up, DB? And I just, I was like, hey, what's up? Appreciate what you guys do. And I'm like, I love those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Hey.
Right. And maybe it's because I have so many like friends, but
I saw your guy Kilgore at one of the Creighton games last week.
Hello, friend.
One of the greatest human beings ever.
Yeah, good dude. I talked to him a bunch at Westside games.
I hope I don't have to be mad at him. He told me some news the other day after a game, and I'm like, if you do, I just don't know if we can be friends.
Uh-oh.
Hello, friend.
I'm kind of kidding, but yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah, good dude.
But so it was the second show. It was the first one that I watched, but the second show I heard of because everybody's on that Love Stalk Kill, the one that is from the guy in Omaha.
Okay, yeah, okay.
It was the case in like 11 or 12 where some people say like the police work wasn't top notch.
Wasn't what you would hope for.
And it certainly wasn't in American Nightmare.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, they said what? Wait, they accused you of what? They didn't take you know what I mean? So you just don't like to see that?
No.
So I didn't watch Love Stock.
You weren't about that?
No.
Yeah.
Plus I don't really remember.
I don't either. Is that
when the All-Star game was good?
So that's my question. I don't know if not wrong.
So he has all these bad clips. He's like, you guys always want to reference the 80s.
Yes.
Like the 80s, this was trash.
Yeah.
So he always shows these bad clips. Stop.
No, it's
Because
true.
I know. Stop.
It's true.
Stop.
It's true.
Because your man crush with Curry has clouded your judgment.
No. I have just as big of a man crush on Larry Bird.
Yeah, he's the deal. It was good to see him prominent again.
I love Larry.
Over the weekend.
I love Larry Legend. That's my guy. But no, I was trying to figure out if the All-Star game used to be better or if I just liked it because I was a kid.
How good would the state of Indiana's All-Star team be?
Pretty
in the
good.
NBA?
Pretty good. Yeah. I don't even know who else would be on it, but it's Larry Bird, and then I'm good.
Yeah.
I really don't know who else would be on it. I'm trying to think.
Well, Oscar.
Is he from the state of Indiana?
Yeah, I believe Reggie. And Isaiah's Chicago, isn't he? So Zeke would be out.
Yeah. The Chicago is elite, obviously. The Chicago All-Stars.
You think?
I think so. There's a lot of really good players from Chicago.
Zeke, Wade.
Do we count KG? He didn't grow up there, but he went to high school there.
Is he Farragut?
Yeah. But he grew up in like South Carolina, and then he went to high school in Chicago. So I don't know if he counts.
Well, we'd have to probably,
we'd have to
set some parameters.
But like, I'll take.
So you're mad about the All-Stars?
I'm not mad about it.
It's bad. It's bad basketball.
Yeah, I'm not mad about it. I just don't care. I sort of enjoy parts of the All-Star weekend. Like, I like watching the 3-point shooting contest because I just like shooting.
You like fake outrage with Kenny Smith?
So, are
you guys really mad that he said that?
I don't know. Are you?
I'm not. But I'm not like that though. Like I couldn't care less.
I was kind of annoyed that he was like stepping on the call.
Yeah. Now that's fine. That's fine.
Like I think it's listen, if you want to bring up, hey, if she had shot from the WNBA
She'd
line,
have had more than 26 points.
she probably would have won.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and that is a reasonably fair take.
Yeah.
But it was annoying that he was just stepping on the call in the moment. And so you couldn't even, it was just yelling. It just sounded like a bunch of yelling between him and then Reggie got in there. And so I was just, what's happening right now? That was the worst part for me. If he wants to have an opinion, I don't care. And that's the crazy thing. He's probably right. If she shoots from the WNBA line, she probably beats Curry.
Yeah, it did not move my needle one bit.
It was just a weird time to make that stand.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
aggressively.
it's a bad game.
No, the game is awful. I like watching the shooting. I don't really care about the dunk contest anymore.
Well, now that is fallen off
hard
tremendously.
Which is weird because the actual dunks are pretty good.
Yeah.
But I just don't care.
And I remember, Shane, there goes the old internet. I remember when so like Coach Huffman and he used to like walk across the street or vice versa. And it seemed like we were always watching TV in my basement, and we'd play video games in his.
Mm-hmm.
He'd walk across. We watched the dunk contest all the time together. Is
it just that it's guys that we don't care about? Is that the whole thing?
I think we want better players to participate. It's like the home run derby.
Because the actual dunks are pretty good.
Yeah, no, I'll give you that.
Right? I mean, the Mac McClung dunk over Shaq was pretty cool. A lot of Jaylen Browns were okay. Like
Jaylen Brown,
I don't know how he made the finals. Like I didn't think
he's frustrating, but I'm not here to represent Celtics fans. But
that's fair. But that's the thing. It's the actual dunks are pretty good.
Is it better than the NHL All-Star game?
I like the skills competition. The NHL skills competition is pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah.
But the actual game, I don't know that it's very good.
Is it better than what the NFL has morphed into?
That's an interesting question. Because
the only good one is Major League Baseball. Because it looks the most like the regular season. And I still hate guys only throwing one inning.
Is that an indictment on baseball that their exhibition game?
No, but I love baseball, so I'm biased.
I want to get into that more. We'll get to that next. We wrap up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We are live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. You know, it's kind of funny. The guy goes, you can't defend that. It's not like they were trying to defend anything. You know, it's a little ironic. Like, oh, you can't defend that. Who was defending anything?
Ravi Lulla here for Alanis Morissette. It's a little ironic, don't you think? No, somebody just said, was that TK that said it's a shame that was Lillard's best game of the season?
Well, he was probably the most comfortable because that's how Milwaukee's been playing defense all year.
Did you have to adjust your television set, say Doc Rivers on the sidelines? What the?
It's
nice loophole.
Are we sure Doc Rivers is a good basketball coach?
I never thought that.
Okay. Because everybody else seems to.
Oh, heck no. Hey, don't ask my man Eddie Johnson.
I don't think he's a good basketball coach.
Woo.
He's been trading off of that 08 Celtics for a long time now.
Yeah, 100%.
He might not be good. I know the All-Star game's not good, but I don't know if there's is there a fix? Is there a way to fix it?
I don't know.
Because you can't just be like, hey, play harder, guys, please.
Incentives, you can incentivize it somehow.
Can you expand the lineup?
I don't know that.
Expand. They need to narrow.
I don't know that you can offer enough money for those guys to care because of what their salaries are now. Like, what would that cash prize have to look like?
I don't know. I just think it's funny. Like,
because we don't want to put stakes on it like Major League Baseball did, right?
You really think this is an injury thing? Like,
no, I don't.
Who was that whining about 62 or 82 games? Was it Jaylen Brown?
Probably.
And I wanted to say, like, Stockton missed 19 games in 22 years.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure Jordan played 82 as like a 40-year-old for the Wizards.
You know, and I get it. Guys are bigger, faster, stronger, but does that make you more prone to injury?
I don't know. I mean,
And I hate the whole get off my lawn deal because I see pitchers fall by the wayside and they throw fewer innings than they ever have.
Yeah.
So maybe there's something to building up your body.
The pitcher thing is different because it's a different thing because everybody's a max effort guy now.
And you're doing some things with your arm and arm slots
that are totally
and arm
unnatural.
angles that are,
Throwing a baseball is the most
overhand. Yes.
Is the most unnatural thing we do in sports in terms of physiology, right? Your arm is not supposed to do that.
It's not designed to throw overhand. It's designed to go underhand.
Yeah, especially with the hand in that position. That's why throwing a football is okay. You can throw a football because the position makes sense. I'm not doing a tomahawk chop over here. Like the position of your arm.
Yeah, that's
sense.
the FSU in you.
But when you turn your hand like this,
nice Seminole gold.
I wasn't doing anything. I'm wearing a little blue and yellow. This is more like Yellow Jackets, if anything. I'm more like a little Georgia Tech.
Yeah, you and Jeff Sims.
I was more like maybe Calvin Johnson, maybe a little, no CJ
Swilling, maybe somebody. I like Calvin Johnson.
Who was the other guy? Like Ridley? Wasn't he a Georgia Tech guy?
Soon to be Chief, Calvin Ridley.
I don't know.
Golly, their cap space, what they do in the offseason is going to be amazing.
The Chiefs,
yeah, because their front office has done a really good job.
It's
quietly
really hard to do what they've done with a number like Mahomes is on the payroll.
Yeah, and I think. Well, I was talking to Norris basketball coach the other day before the West Side game, and he's a diehard Steelers fan. So we were talking about caps, and I was like, yeah, like the Steelers almost $30 million in cap. Like that's weird because they just had the 3 cuts and not used to seeing the Steelers with cap space. So I just was like looking at the team's different situations, and teams like the Texans that have 31 restricted or unrestricted free agents. Like they got a lot of guys. It's just hard. Detroit's in a weird spot. So you have to, Dallas is in a weird spot. You have some decisions you have to make because a lot of those teams are good right now because of their depth.
Well, I mean, it's not the National Parity League for nothing. These are the decisions that their salary cap has forced them into. And I think on purpose, this is what they wanted, I think, is to not have these dynasties and to be able to have different teams be competitive every year. And so you end up with
for as much as we knock the NBA setup and pay. I mean, you have had 5 champions in 5 years.
Yeah, you have. Well, but they've also, in the last collective bargaining agreement, made the luxury tax aggressively more punitive.
Yeah, so you have to get all the way out to reset.
Yep, you do. They've made it aggressively more punitive.
That's why Golden State's in the mud.
Oh, they could have. I was reading a thing about their salary cap right before the trade deadline. They could have cut an $8 million salary, and it would have saved them like $60 million. Yeah. That's how aggressively punitive the salary tax is at the point they're at, and they just don't care.
Is there any takeaway from baseball to lap over to? Because there's really no
in terms of their All-Star game.
Well, I don't know how deep you get in the weeds with baseball and contracts, but like the salary cap and the luxury
weeds with my Red Sox and
with luxury taxes and then percentages, and then if you're at a third year, it gets into your draft picks. Like the tighter they restrict those moves for those soft cap leagues, you think that's better or worse for the sport?
I mean, I think it attracts a different type of owner to the major markets.
So why shouldn't Golden State be able to have like a keeper league and say, hey, Curry's my guy,
and just have him not count against the cap?
Yeah.
I wouldn't hate that, but it's also...
Is that weird?
Kind of what they used to do.
I don't even know what that would look like. I kind of...
That's sort of what the bird rights used to do, right?
A little bit.
Now, it didn't not count, but it was dramatically less punitive than it is now.
You got a mulligan.
And
how long ago was it before they got away where you could cut a guy? Like, it wasn't the Boozer rule. I think Boozer may have had it used on him.
Yeah, it was the cut. It was like the cut and stretch rule, basically.
Yeah.
You cut a guy and then they had a freebie too, where you would just cut a guy and his money totally came off your books. That's a while ago now. I
Hadn't
think.
been that long. 10 years, maybe?
Yeah, about a decade, I think,
Okay.
is when it started. And then you could use it for X number of years or something coming out of one of the collective bargaining deals.
I don't know how you up the product, though.
In the All-Star game? Or in general?
Unless it's something like that. Because I know what you're saying about if you incentivize it monetarily, that they make so much money anyway.
Yeah, I don't know what that number would have to be for it to make it. You know what I mean? It can't. $1 million a guy doesn't do it. And I know that sounds crazy, but $1 million a guy on the roster for what the roster typically looks like doesn't really move the needle. You're talking about basically 1 week's pay for some of these guys, which is not, I mean, that doesn't move the needle for them.
Right.
If you're making 45, 50 million, 1 million does not move the needle. So what does that look like in terms of actually making the All-Star game watchable? I don't know. I have sort of thought, because if injuries are the objection, right?
I just hear that.
I don't know if they are.
This isn't DB here for definitive spokesperson.
Yeah.
But I do hear the injury thing a lot.
That's the thing that you hear the most, right? Is I think you could make an argument for a 3-on-3 tournament being less injury prone because you're not running up and it takes less out of your legs. You're not running up and down the court. You're playing basically half court 3-on-3. And I wonder if they would get behind that. If you could basically you have your all-star pool and then you have captains and you could pick teams.
So you
have a 3-on-3 tournament.
So you asked me who the NBA All-Star thing is for.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's for kids.
Yeah, and that's why I wondered, because when I was a kid, I liked All-Star games.
I think it's for kids.
I liked the Pro Bowl. I liked the NBA All-Star game. I liked the MLB All-Star game.
The Pro Bowl used to be like, I remember. Now he's one of my favorite players of all time.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember like Sean Taylor like rocking a kicker.
Yeah. He did. Lit a dude up.
Is that old boy from the Colts?
I believe
he got somebody.
Was it Mac? It wasn't McAfee, was it?
No.
Was it Vanderjack?
No.
When did while you're thinking, when did these games start becoming 400-point games?
In the NBA, it's been within the last
6, 5.
I mean, that's ridiculous right there.
They were like pretty consistently 300-point games for a minute there.
Well, Sean Taylor used he wasn't that long ago.
Well, he passed in like 08, 09, somewhere in there. So, I mean, it wasn't always bad, is your point, right?
Yeah, I'm just.
Football's hard. I understand why,
and we can't have it both ways either. Like, can you have a player truck a catcher at home plate during an All-Star game,
like Pete Rose,
and then in the same vein say, "Hey, man, we need to play for substance."
Yeah,
but I do like. We didn't like the home field thing.
No.
I don't know. Maybe it's just not for us, and we just let it ride.
Yeah, maybe it is just for kids. Like maybe
because
maybe it's for kids.
I was going through this with somebody. It might have been Mike is. So I think I was talking to Chiefs fan Jordan, and we were talking about like Huskers and history and the league, and I think I narrowed it down to like all pros and not Pro Bowl selections, just because it's hard for me to like factor in. So. Somewhere along the early 2000s, it got bad as well.
It did.
The NFL.
And I just wonder, maybe that's why I was wondering, like, maybe I liked it as a kid because it was aimed towards me as a kid.
It's not for us.
And maybe it's always been bad. Yeah. I don't know. You know, it's never bad is our guy, Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. He's coming up next here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi. We are joined now on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline by Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, what's going on?
Not much. Happy Monday morning.
Good to see. Good to talk to you, Sam.
We'll see each other eventually.
Yeah, it's coming up here pretty soon. This is crazy because it's kind of out of nowhere, but not nowhere, because everybody asked during recruiting for probably 2 months, and I didn't say much primarily because I didn't know much in terms of it. Confirmation. What was your level of surprise about Phil Simpson leaving Nebraska?
Well, so think we reported it like on signing day as part of just a little note. But we knew a week before that. Not that surprised, because I imagine that a coach like that would really love to have an opportunity closer to where they coach. So that doesn't surprise me that much. Like those things happen. Now sometimes they usually leave for like full-time assistant roles, but it's not uncommon, I think, for somebody who's like, hey, I have an opportunity to recruit the kids that I love, and he loves the kids down there, to a school that's close, and so he can go there more often. He can be closer to the people that he grew up with and all the rest. So that's pretty common. It's a loss.
Yeah, it was fairly quiet for as much as people speculated during the recruiting cycle for as good a person as he was on that staff, I think.
Yes, it was quiet. Again, like we knew about it, and I think we put it on February 7th. We put it in the note that he had left for some role somewhere else. And again, that's just going to happen. That's one of the. I don't know if it's a disadvantage, but it's part of what happens at Nebraska is that assistants who want to get to a place where they can recruit, but it's not that you can't recruit kids in Nebraska. You can. The problem is that travel a long way sometimes. Sometimes if you can get closer to home and travel less, then that's an ease of a burden on a staff member.
Well, it's just an easier sell for him too, right? If he's recruiting Florida kids to Florida State, that's that's an easier sales pitch than recruiting Florida kids to Nebraska, right?
It is. In my experience, there are kids there, so it's kind of like concentric circles. There are kids in Miami.
Bingo card. Let's go.
There are kids in Miami that want to stay at Miami, and if at all possible, they want to go to Miami. Then there's kids who want to kind of leave Miami, but they want to stay in Florida, and there's like 38 schools you can go to. And then there's kids who really want to get out of the state of Florida. They want to leave Miami. They want to leave Florida. And Nebraska really benefited from this in the 90s in California. So there were players who, just guys that just want to get out and get all the way away from where they grew up. And Nebraska got a lot of those players and got really, really good players. And so that's some of what Nebraska can do is, like Lamar Jackson goes to Louisville, Teddy Bridgewater goes to Louisville. They're both from basically the same part, Miami. Those guys just didn't want to. Well, Lamar Jackson, I think, got paid, but they didn't want to go to Miami, so they end up, helping Louisville win a bunch of games, and that's common. You've got to find the kids who really just want to leave Miami altogether, and Nebraska's been able to find some of those.
We're talking with Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, I want to talk to you about the column about the sit down that Tom Chattel had with Matt Rhule.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really interesting read, and it kind of, maybe I liked it because it sort of, I think, confirmed one of the things I'd been thinking, how I love a confirmation bias, but it felt like the sort of essence of Tom's conversation with Matt Rhule came down to, not to steal a term from Coach Rhule here, but that one of us. Matt Rhule feels like one of us, even though he wasn't born here. Is that what you took away from it as well?
Well, Tom's, the thing I always say about Tom is he gets people to say things that they don't say to anybody else, and that's part of what makes him him. And so you can always read something that Tom has when he talks to a coach, whether it's John Cook or Greg McDermott or now Matt Rhule, where Matt Rhule wouldn't have said that. So the things that Rhule says to Tom, he probably isn't going to say to other people. It's just a gift that Tom has. And so, I think there's illuminating things in it, right, about just the way that he kind of goes about his life and lives here. I do think that he fits this place pretty well. I think he's a relational guy. I think Matt Rhule can fit just about anywhere. I think he spends time really thinking about how he can make relationships and connections, and he's moved around enough, I think, as a kid to be kids and going out and doing stuff and being a part of the community. I think Nebraska had other coaches who were like that. Mike Riley was like that. He just didn't have any kids to go storm a court with. So, but I mean, it's nice to have that, and I think Rhule's sincere about that. And anybody who loves food is always going to endear a sports writer. And Matt Rhule really actually has like a love and a passion for
100%
wine and all that.
Yep.
So, sports writers like that. So yeah, he endears himself pretty successfully to the rest.
So far, and we'll see, and just talking to him as much as I have about a multitude of things, he seems to have. Now it's just year one, so knock on my head here, wood. The balance between understanding the media and what's said and what's out there, but so far it doesn't sway the essence of who he is. He's so authentic and secure that he can get a vibe with what the pulse is, and it doesn't faze him, right? And sometimes he'll even talk to you guys about it in a presser, and it's like, oh, he's paying attention, but it hasn't compromised him yet. You know what I mean? It usually eats at other people over time, and it sways the way that they normally would carry themselves.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that he has I think he has a personality that can manage it pretty well. I think he also understands that to be the head coach at Nebraska is to have an intense amount of interest around you, and to have an intense amount of interest around the program and the players, and to also know that there's only so many hours in the day where he can get that message out himself, separate of us. And so he's going to use the collected media, and there's a lot of us, to talk not only to his team, but also on some occasions to deliver a message about his team. There's been a couple of times where I thought, after the Michigan game, there were some things he felt like, 3 days later or however many days later it was, I think there were some things he felt like he had to say about the Michigan game that maybe didn't come out right away.
Or things like, hey, this is kind of what you get with me. Right? I mean,
yeah,
it's like, whoa. He's been sitting on that.
Yeah, and he's good. I mean, he's disarming in that way, and he does his job really well in that regard. As it related to the way that Nebraska's offense played last year, the media probably should have done a little bit better job. That was a historically bad offense, and I do think that they've taken steps to remedy that. I do, but you got to find a way to land in the plane, in the last 4 games. And against Wisconsin, they played pretty well. Again, that's one of the best games they played all year. So it's too bad that Wisconsin played pretty well that day too, and Wisconsin ended the season on, I don't know what it was, 3 or 4 game winning streak, and actually found its sea legs by the end of the year. Wisconsin was playing pretty good football. But the other 3 games, Nebraska did not. They just didn't put their best foot forward. And the quarterback play last year was really bad. We identified that early against Colorado. We said they're going to have to fix this. They never really fixed it. They went to the option for a couple of games, and that took a few teams off guard. But they really have to fix that quarterback play this year. And if they do, they have a chance to have a really nice season. I think Matt Rhule knows that, and I think that's part of the urgency that's involved with his program.
Sam, I want to switch gears here on you and go over to Nebraska men's basketball for a second. They obviously got the win against Penn State, continue to serve, holding serve at home. Any takeaways from that Penn State game? I thought they did a nice job of not allowing Penn State to get them out of their game, especially in the second half there. And I guess, what are you looking for in the next couple of games as they try and finally get that first conference road win?
They play Indiana this week.
Boy, did you watch their act this weekend? Ugh.
Yeah. I just lost to Northwestern. Yeah.
Sam, like,
They might get Woodson fired. If Nebraska beats them, they
and
might get
he's
Woodson
not
fired.
saying a lot of that's kind of what I was going to say. I don't know how much I like coaches' pressers, right? And I was hoping he would explain those atrocious uniforms that they were wearing. But outside of that, it's like, for a guy that understands that program, he just kind of says whatever he wants to about the direction that basketball program is going.
Right.
Do you kind of get that? He's either super secure or really indifferent.
I think he's secure. I think if Indiana wants to make a change there, he'd be like, well, this is amateur hour, and it would be amateur hour if they replace it. It's just, it would not be amateur hour if Michigan replaces Juwan Howard. Clearly, there are things there that are not going well.
Well, as a Laker fan, he could take Hood Schifino back. That's for sure. Man.
Yeah. So in Indiana, I would say that Woodson, he shouldn't be going anywhere, but they'll do what they do, and yeah, I think Nebraska's got a great chance of going there and winning. I think Nebraska's got a great chance of beating Ohio State. They just played their one game. Ohio State did. Now, what's interesting about Ohio State is they've got good players.
Yeah, they're capable.
Better players than Nebraska. They do. And so, but this is Jamison Battle does this everywhere he goes. Like, he's a confounding. He didn't really make Minnesota better. Minnesota's better without him, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but they are. And Ohio State has not been as good, as they probably could have been. And you wonder if that has something to do with Battle or something else. You just don't really know. But they've got a chance to win a couple games down the stretch here. Indiana, to me, over the last however many years, and Dirk, I think, put something out about they've been to the Sweet 16 7 years, whatever. Indiana, aside from Trace, who was there for 4 years, they're not very big, and they're not like super athletic. They don't just jump off the screen at you, and you can beat them. That's just no other way to put it. You can beat that team because they're not what you think an elite basketball program should look like in terms of their speed and their height and whatever. Same time, they almost beat Kansas earlier this year at home. And so they can put it together on the right day. And, Nebraska's going to have to play really well to win. And a lot of these teams are not doing that on the road. Northwestern is. Northwestern got a huge win over Indiana, and that win pretty much puts them in the tournament.
Helps so Nebraska too. Don't think I wasn't on the Northwestern and Minnesota watch this weekend.
Yeah. Yep. Well, those teams are battling. They're battling for those two teams are battling for an NCAA tournament spot. If Indiana had won yesterday and had beaten Nebraska, they would have played themselves back onto the bubble, and then they probably would have had to win out. But they're probably headed for the NIT at best. And Mike Woodson, I like him. I just think he needs to recruit better players. And in the portal era, that's hard to do. You have to go recruit portal kids. You can't develop kids at 18 years old. You have to go get the portal kid. And they got one, and he's a good player, but you got to get about 4 of them. And that's where Fred Hoiberg, his long experience in doing this, has helped Nebraska. They've gotten pretty good portal guys over the last 2 years.
Does it seem like Michigan State's won 11 out of their last 13 or whatever it is?
Well, they lost a game that I thought they were going to win, but otherwise, yes. They beat Illinois. They have a lot of talent. So they started the year preseason top 5 for a reason, and they're finding their stride. And last year they were 2 buckets away from going to the Elite 8. Won't surprise me if they're in the Elite 8 again.
Tyson Walker can be a handful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're good. Yeah, he's a good player. He's a good scorer. They have guys that are really inconsistent, but when they play well, they're good. And the thing about Michigan State that has not changed, and this is a little bit like Creighton, is they will take the ball literally out of the basket and score in 5 seconds on it.
Yeah.
that they have the ability to do that. And they've trained that way. And Creighton has the same ability. I mean, when made baskets make Creighton play sometimes faster than missed baskets. And when you're playing teams like that, it can be hard to break away from them. And that's why, I like Creighton and Michigan State both in the NCAA tournament when they get there.
Sam, where's your level of comfort, or I guess discomfort, with Nebraska making the NCAA tournament if they aren't able
won 0 conference road games and made the NCAA tournament since they expanded to 68. You got to win at least one. So there's considerable evidence that if you don't win at least one, the chances are slim of you getting in. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're 18-8 right now. Is that their record? Yes.
Yeah,
I believe so. Yeah.
So if they win the rest of their home games, I think that's 2 or 3 home games. They would get to 20, and then they would, if they lose all 3 road games, they're at 20-11. I don't think that's enough. I think if they had beaten Northwestern, then 20 would be enough, but they didn't. And so now I think they've got to get to 21 at least. And I think most of the people around here would say 22 because there's a built-in fear around Nebraska basketball that what happened to Tim Miles however many years ago will happen to Fred Hoiberg. And you got to understand, and I don't say this rudely, there are people here who miss Tim Miles more than they like Fred Hoiberg.
So Sam,
there's diehard fans that feel that way, and so they're always mad. So they're always like, it's almost like, well, if they make it with 22 wins, then Tim Miles should have done it. I'm like, yeah, I don't care about that. Whatever.
So here's the thing, and let me give it some context, right? That's one of those. When I said, people keep saying that, I think it has much more to do with, and I get the empirical data, I do, about you'd be bucking a trend. I think, and I said this last week, it would be more about a bad loss than it would be not winning on the road, because at Michigan is a bad loss. Nebraska currently doesn't have any bad losses. That's what I think it is. So I think it needs some context, especially in a year where top 25 teams have struggled on the road to begin with. I think the committee is weary of that. They understand that. It has more to do with how you would view losing in Ann Arbor than it being in Ann Arbor, because Michigan is not a good basketball team, but they do have a different roster at home. So that's what I think it is. I think it's the perception of who they're playing, because they'll probably be favored from here on out, with the exception of maybe Ohio State.
Right. I'd be surprised if they're favored on Wednesday against Indiana, to be honest with you. But
really,
we'll see.
You just watched Indiana, Sam.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I'd be surprised. I guess we'll find out.
Hey, watch, and then you'll be right. I'll read your message, and you'll be like, see?
We'll see.
And I'll be like, that damn Sam.
If they get to 21, then they've done it. I think they're in. Now, one more thing. Minnesota's not a good matchup for Nebraska.
Oh, I know it.
They weren't last year, and they're not now. I like their coach.
I'm curious how they're going to use Garcia, though, because when he got in foul, there are some things about Garcia's game that is an advantage for Nebraska, even though he's a really good player. He sometimes he seems disinterested.
That's a nice way to put it.
He can do a lot of things, and so like last year, when they played Nebraska in the Big Ten tournament, Nebraska really needed a win. They couldn't stop Garcia to save their life. Yep. I mean, he took Wilhelm Breidenbach into the spin cycle, 3 or 4 times in a row.
It's now, more on the defensive end where I think Nebraska can do work.
Right. And Juwan Gary was hurt. And so, Dawson Garcia got to go to work on Juwan, on Breidenbach instead of Gary. But they're not a great matchup. They have a lot of good athletes. They play pretty hard. If they make shots, they're a hard team for Nebraska to beat. So that's the other game that and if you're looking at the women's side, that's the same deal. Minnesota is a bad matchup for Nebraska. Like those two teams, those two matchups, Minnesota's favored in both of those. And so we'll see. Nebraska's got to find a way. That'd be that.
Sam, I'm gonna light a match here and then run away, as we've got about 90 seconds left with you. So we were having a conversation with another Bears fan on Friday, and somehow we got on the topic of Walter Payton.
Oh Lord!
And so I'm just, are you gonna die on the hill of Walter Payton being the best running back of all time? Because our other guy was.
He's not though.
That he's the best running back of all time?
Yeah.
Yes. Is that a hill you will die on as a Bears fan?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
See, thank you.
Where is he on the list?
Jim Brown is the best football player of all time, and he's the best running back of all time as a proxy of that.
Yeah, I don't know about that either. That's opinion, so I wouldn't fight you over that. And I'm not glad that you said that about Peyton, but I just think Peyton was such a good guy in a city that he is connected with, that shares his same temperament of work ethic, that it has grown the lore. But there's a couple of other running backs, like if I had to just go play a couple of games, at least a handful that I would take.
Who, like Barry Sanders?
Oh, for sure.
Well, yeah, but Jim Brown's the best player of all time. That's not like, you're not arguing that. You could argue Jerry Rice or Lawrence Taylor. Those are your three.
The only way I would argue Jim Brown is if he would have played against more people like him. He was such a one-off. It's hard for me to quantify.
So he's like Wilt.
I'm not holding that against him, but it's in my head. Does that make sense?
Well, that's like saying Wilt Chamberlain's in the top 10 player because he was too tall.
No, I didn't say he wasn't top 10. Wilt is top 10, but I also didn't say Jim Brown wasn't top 10. You said he was the best. I would not, in the same vein, say Wilt was the best.
I don't think Wilt's the best, but I think Wilt's like top 3 or 4. And it's not his fault that there wasn't anybody as athletic as he was.
Come on, Mikan.
Like I said, if you want to say Jerry Rice or Lawrence Taylor, those are fine. I put the quarterbacks in a separate conversation. They do a different thing. And so they're not part of that. Like the quarterbacks are over here because you can't hurt them the same way you could hurt a running back or a receiver. Unless you want to go all the way back to autogram and all that stuff, we don't need to do that.
Yeah.
So, as the best football player, I think Jim Brown, Jerry Rice, Lawrence Taylor, I think those are your 3 available options. If you want to say Barry Sanders, that's fine, but I don't think anybody would want to tackle Jim Brown versus Barry Sanders.
Yeah. That's Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, we appreciate your time. Thanks for letting me go sideways on you at the end there, and we will talk to you again next week.
All right, take care.
Thanks, Sam.
We're halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We are live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla, and we are brought to you by our friends at Dyer Law. If you've been hurt in a personal injury accident, you can count on the Dyer Law team to provide you with a helping hand when you need it, no matter what you're dealing with. Call the Dyer Law team at 402-393-7529 or visit dyer.law to chat with trusted professionals about your personal injury claim. That's DYER.law. Okay, so the reason I dropped that grenade on Sam and then ran was because I wanted to get into that conversation anyway about kind of the way we overrate certain players. And just because I say we overrate Walter Payton doesn't necessarily, like, people take that as more of a pejorative than I probably mean it as, right? Wilt is a good example here.
So
because
pejorative and concentric circles. That's what we're doing on President's Day.
Well, listen, we're trying to,
on the show. Couldn't he have just said like circles with the same origin or starting point?
I mean, we're all right. I think we've got a lot of kids out of school. We're trying to keep them educated here. While they listen to the radio.
It's stretching me. I can't even Google real time. I suppose I could.
The conversation came up last week on Friday with Matt, with Vers, and about Walter Payton, whether he's the best running back.
Well, he was just so emphatic, it was off-putting.
Yeah. And then Sam went in a different direction where he didn't ride that way for Walter, but then he did ride that way for Jim Brown.
Well, and the weird thing is I've learned this over the years in terms of on air and live real time questions. Like I'm not going to allow you to move the goalposts.
Yeah. And
they kind of got moved real time with the Wilt Chamberlain.
And we were up against the clock, so that's probably part of it.
But I wouldn't argue that Wilt is not top 10 because of, or top whatever because of size. But I also wouldn't, in the same vein, say that he is the best
GOAT
because of his size.
Yeah, I think it's.
But it certainly is not easier to tackle. He just said, like, people much rather tackle Barry Sanders than Jim Brown. No, they wouldn't.
I think he meant from a punishment standpoint. It's more punishing to tackle a big
I don't know.
Okay, that's fair.
I don't know. Like
how I took.
They ran buck sweep, power, and toss. Right? Like, I'm pretty sure guys could fit in the run game.
Sure.
Playing downhill.
Yeah. That's fair.
Like, but that's how you have to think about. At least that's how I think about it.
Right, but that's. I think you do have a unique perspective there.
No.
I don't know that everybody else thinks about it that way.
I mean, I guess
that's what I mean.
If you only make me defend 3 plays,
yeah,
I'm going to get you.
Yeah,
it doesn't really, and it's not a me thing. It's anybody.
Right.
Like, you have to be. It's like those people. I've said this for 15 years, since they started going to the gun and running inside zone. You cannot get in the gun and run zone without quarterback run game or an elite offensive line. There is not enough to it. And even now, what you see out of one back run game out of the gun, they run things like dart, and then there's counter, and then there's same side handoff. Like, there's these subtle little wrinkles that people do with their schemes now, because if you're not elite up front, it's even in today's game, you have to have creative run game versatility. You cannot just line up and do the same thing. Like, nobody's that good, because defensively, the people that you're playing against are amazing. Like, the better athletes play defense.
Well, yeah, you have to be, because you're reactive. You have to be reactive, right? Like,
and it's just harder.
Right. It's harder to play defense because you don't know where the other guy's going. So in order to catch up, you have to be more athletic than they are.
So it's like,
right. That's why the faster guys usually play corner as opposed to receiver.
And I'm not knocking Walter Payton. I'm just saying, like, when you're just talking about running the football, I don't factor in, because this is like, just ask yourself. And Walter's probably a bad example for this particular thing, because I like Walter Payton as a runner.
Sure.
In terms of his efficiency, I didn't love the style, but I'm not here for that for this particular conversation. When you hear this about Walter, well, he was so tough, and he was durable, and he played on bad teams, stuff like that, right? It's strange that when we have those conversations, we don't talk about the things that we think made him elite,
okay,
or a top whatever runner. I just think that's interesting.
So
so my argument is, if the prowess was that great and unparalleled,
why aren't we talking about?
Why aren't we talking about the skill sets?
Okay, so like Barry,
and it's not. I'm not inviting like the conflict. I'm saying, if you just listen to the discussions that surround people, like when you talk about Barry Sanders, we talk about his skill sets. He played for some piss poor franchises.
Well, just the one franchise, but teams,
not franchises. I mean, teams.
Yeah, actual teams. Yeah.
Okay. But we don't say that.
No, we talk about his skill set.
Oh, man, he labored in Detroit for 9 years. I could see why he retired. We don't say that.
Not unless we're talking specifically about his retirement. But we don't talk about that about his career.
We don't say that, oh, he only played with one All-Pro on the offensive line, and if it wasn't for Van Horn, like, we don't do that, but we quantify. It's like Emmitt Smith.
Mhm.
The first thing you hear about Emmitt Smith is his offensive line or that he played with a separated shoulder. Now, is there something to be said for longevity? Absolutely.
Sure.
That availability is a skill.
Sure, absolutely.
Right? So I don't knock that.
Yeah.
But don't tell me there aren't 10 other runners, like just runners.
Yeah, that you take
that
over
you
Emmitt.
take over Emmitt Smith.
So how many runners do you take over Walter Payton?
Oh, off the top of my head, I don't know.
You're taking Barry, obviously.
Yeah.
Are you taking Jim Brown?
Yes.
As a runner?
No. Oh, that's close.
Okay.
And like as a runner, remember,
like as
they
a
were
runner.
like buck sweep power,
Yeah.
and
It's hard. The era makes it hard.
It does.
And also, we were talking about this with Will.
Like as a you want a good one? Like as a runner, I would take LaDainian Tomlinson over Emmitt Smith.
Oh, interesting. Oh, yeah, okay. I thought you were going to say over.
But is anybody going to tell you that they like LaDainian Tomlinson over Emmitt Smith? As a runner, I
Sure.
would. As a runner, I may take Earl Campbell over Walter Payton.
Earl Campbell.
As a natural runner.
There's another guy from around, I think that's the same era, like Eric Dickerson. Where does Eric Dickerson fall there?
So I'm biased, but I'm going to admit that I have a blind spot.
Because you like him a lot.
I like his running style.
Yeah.
But I don't I don't know if it I don't know how much I love his versatility in the run game.
Okay.
He's a downhill kind of straight line runner.
Okay. Can't do as many things as you'd like.
Well, he needs things to go well.
Okay. Which is sort of your bugaboo. You want the guys that need the least to go right.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I look at it's a good example. Like I look at like Clinton Portis.
Okay, sure.
Clinton Portis is an amazing runner.
Mm-hmm.
He's extremely gifted. Like when you just talk about the running back position,
mm-hmm.
Clinton Portis is unbelievable. Now, he'll never rush for Curtis Martin yards.
Okay.
Better runner
than Curtis Martin.
Oh, 100%. He could play in zone. He could go base.
Is there a modern guy that you're sort of infatuated with their running style, like as a runner?
Bijan Robinson.
Okay, sure. Real young guy,
extremely gifted. I like what's his buckets out of with the Rams. 23. I can see him running.
Oh,
gifted runner.
Yeah.
Just natural runners. I don't know. I'm sure there's several. Like I didn't like Willie Parker, even like as a Steeler, right? Because he's one dimensional.
Is it Kyron Williams? Is that who you're thinking of?
Yes, I was going to say. I almost said LaShawn Williams. Yes, no, Kyron Williams,
not LaShawn. Yeah, I wonder because there's a personal preference here, right? Too, in terms of stylistically.
100%.
And I'm the same way with basketball players, right? Like I'm going to gravitate towards a skill set over physical abilities. That's why I don't value Wilt the same way that I value like a Tim Duncan. Like and also I know that you can't hold it against them, but you do have to take the era and their physicality within that era in context.
To some degree.
You have to consider it, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Coming up next, we're going to talk to another guy that can absolutely get buckets. That's Frankie Fidler from Omaha men's basketball. We will talk to him next here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We are live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, and we are joined now on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline by Frankie Fidler of Omaha Basketball. Frankie, how are you this morning?
I'm good. How about yourself?
We are doing good.
We're
got
good,
your guy
man.
DB here with us.
Yeah, you know this.
Yeah,
this
thanks for having me.
This makes me excited, man. How you feeling health wise, man? It's been a grind for you, logging heavy minutes and crucial part of the season, man. How you feeling physically?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. Definitely playing a lot more and doing a lot more for the team this year. But I think, I'm taking my recovery a lot more serious as well, just so I'm ready for it.
It's funny you say that. I was talking to Tarp and some of the guys that watched you guys on Saturday night. Like, your physical growth is very, very apparent. Big, strong, used to kind of be a lean guy. If you could go back to high school and talk to the young folks, would you tell them about fitness, lifting weights, kind of eating well? Is that an underappreciated part of your evolution?
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially this off season, I took it very serious to get my body where I can perform at a high level this year. And what I think is funny is that when I was in high school, I was probably a sophomore. Someone had told me, like, that was actually a pro, had told me, they wish they took lifting weights and getting their body ready more serious in high school, which I didn't do it as well as I do now, but I still took it pretty serious, and I think it's a huge part of the reason why I'm playing so good this year.
Frankie, coming off of the split with the South Dakota schools over the extended weekend, Thursday and Saturday, how do you feel about the way the team is playing as you head into this final stretch before the conference tournament?
Yeah, I think we're playing really well right now. Playing with a lot of confidence. We let that South Dakota State game slip away from us, but I do think we played well enough to win. Just got to close that game out better. I think, there's still areas we can improve in, getting tougher in the paint, getting defensive rebounds. But, overall, I think we're playing really good right now, and we're all confident, going into the tournament.
Frank, how much of is it like, did you expect to kind of be a little more consistent at this point of the season, or because it seems so wide open, do you look at it that way as a positive as postseason rolls around?
Yeah, I think it being more wide open this year is definitely gives us a little bit more confidence, knowing that any given night the standings could move and we can be in first place if we win 2 games in a row or something. So I think that definitely helps us, just knowing that we're still right there, even at 5th place, we're still capable of being top 3 in the league at any given moment.
We're talking with Frankie Fidler from Omaha men's basketball, averaging right around 20 points a game for the Mavericks. Frankie, I'm curious, what are some of the things you think this team has improved on the most going from year 1 to year 2 under Coach Crutch?
Yeah, well, I think, the biggest thing is just our mental toughness. Last year we had a lot of first year D1 guys, and, they didn't really understand the game and what it took really to win games. And so I think that's been a big improvement this year. I also think, our physical toughness has been seen during the games through everyone. So I think those two things have been big factors on why we're winning more games this year.
Now, you know this about me, how I feel about you all the way since before high school, and having an older brother, you playing with other great players. It never really mattered to you when you stepped on the court, right? There's this thing that I would watch you do where you would just try to give it to everybody on the court at all times, right? Like, I just want to know, like, as it's kind of evolving and you're learning to harness it and channel it over time, because you're not near as excitable as you used to be, and some of that is just maturity. But you used to, it was, I'm like, ooh, I can't wait to see who he's gonna talk reckless to or try to dunk on tonight, or I used to always think that, and now it's this under control kind of silent assassin. Like, is that just the maturity? Is it the way that the game has gone? Is it you're more comfortable with who you are? You don't have to prove as much. Like, what is that in a nutshell?
Yeah, I kind of think, a lot of it's just me maturing. Of course, like of course, talking trash and getting in the defenders' faces is fun, and trying to embarrass them to a sense is fun. But I think just me growing up and realizing I'm a good player. I don't have to do any of that. I can just let my game speak for itself, and that's kind of what I like to do now. And I just don't like getting into the stuff during the game really much anymore.
It's kind of cool. Obviously, your play-by-play guy, Sharp. We've watched for a long time, and he and I talked. We used to talk early in your career. It's like high degree of difficulty of shots, right? Kind of contested, and your spots on the floor now. You take a lot of easier shots. How has the basketball IQ kind of evolved too? Because you can just see you thinking and working and moving without the ball, man, and it's had to have added to the PPGs, right? It just didn't happen overnight.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I give a big credit to Coach Crutch. He kind of told me, like, man, if you get to your spot, you're automatic. And the whole coaching staff really. So especially this off season, we kind of watched a lot of film and figured out where I'm best at on the floor, and kind of just rep that out. And coaches drew plays up for me, to get me right in my spot. So a big credit to them. It just kind of makes me more efficient, knowing the shots I'm putting up is where I'm best at.
Frankie, obviously you guys are trying to make a run and get that first ever NCAA tournament appearance for Omaha men's basketball. Being from the area, how much would that mean to you personally to lead this team to a place they've never been before?
Yeah, it'd mean a lot to me, and I know it'd mean a lot to the community and the fans as well, just because, Omaha hasn't been talked about a lot, definitely a lot more recently. And I think, being able to bring us to an NCAA tournament would be a huge thing just for the whole city of Omaha and UNO itself.
It's interesting. All the guys kind of from your stretch, whether it's, Trelly or yourself or even Ton just before the injury. It wasn't no disrespect. Chucky was fantastic and Hunter was fantastic. And there were some guys that were probably a little more talked about. Have you allowed yourself to step back when you talk to all your buddies from that stretch, that 5-6 year run, and say, gosh, look at us and what we're accomplishing in the game of basketball right now? That may go back to that is a very, very good era of high school basketball.
Yeah, I think about it all the time. I'm seeing Saint, Hunter, Trelly, Chucky, everyone, even Akala Rope, John Tanjay, they're going crazy. They're playing really good at their respective colleges. And I just think it's crazy, not a lot of people thought Omaha had hoopers, but, we're kind of showing them that we got game here in Nebraska.
How cool is that to just kind of be able to show everybody, like, yeah, Nebraska's not just a football state. Like, there's some basketball players here too.
Max Polk is not, like, there's a lot of
Frank,
there's some guys, man, if you just kind of go back and look at the accomplishments currently.
Yeah. No, yeah. It's amazing to see, how many people from Nebraska, in other states are playing good at their colleges.
Is it kind of weird? Like, do you find yourself rooting for them now, even though they maybe were kind of like rivals back in high school? Like, you kind of want them to represent Omaha, right? But it's like, I also kind of want to be better than them still, right?
Yeah, I gave that guy 20 over at Ralston Arena.
Yeah, for sure. I think more right now. It's just it's cool to see how much people's game have grown, and yeah, they were doing it in high school, but for them to be able to do it at the college levels, good to see. And I'm rooting for everyone from Omaha.
That's Frankie Fidler from Omaha men's basketball, representing the city, representing the school. Frankie, we appreciate your time, and good luck the rest of the season. And hopefully we'll be talking again with an NCAA tournament bid wrapped up in a couple weeks.
Chance to make a move, man, with the last three. They're ahead of you guys, man. Go get them one in a row, buddy.
Yes, sir. Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
That's Frankie Fidler from Omaha men's basketball. Coming up next, got a guy you may have heard of, Nick Bahe.
I think I've heard of him.
Does a little TV, used to do radio like we do, but he moved on to bigger and better things.
Didn't play radio anymore.
He doesn't play radio anymore unless he's slumming it for, a trip to Hawaii or something. We'll talk to Nick Bahe coming up next on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Kicking off hour number 3 here. Sorry, I was laughing at the intro. Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. Joining us now on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline is the aforementioned Nick Bahe. Nick, how are you this morning?
I'm good. I got an intro.
You did. You made it. But it wasn't making it on TV. You got your intro.
Yeah, that whole national
now
television broadcaster thing. It's all about the open.
That's it. I made it, man. I got it open. That's half the battle of life.
So, Ravi,
it's all downhill for me now.
Ravi and I were joking earlier, and it may not be so funny because he was on the news earlier, but when's the last time you've seen a tirade or kind of a meltdown or a narrative that Pitino is spinning year one at St. John's? Does he sound like a guy that wants out?
I mean,
have you heard that before?
No, I mean, you've heard various things. I mean, even Scott Frost would hint at issues with the roster, but I don't know if I've ever seen a coach so blatantly just throw a fastball right down the middle at exactly what he was. There was no reading between the lines. Well, who is he talking about? He named players.
Yeah,
it's just I don't know. That's little surprising to me. But you never know. I don't know. I always wondered, I don't know how you guys are. You've been in locker rooms, both of you have. I was trying to really put myself in a St. John's player's shoes because we do this thing in the media. We're like, oh, no, I mean, the players are going to really not like that. I'm trying to really put my go back when I was playing, which is a long time ago now, and really think about how Coach Holton says something like that about me, calls me out. Bill Self says something like that, calls me out, how I would have felt about it. I certainly would have been in my feelings for a second, but at the same time, I don't know. I mean, I think I would have had a hard time, not at least acknowledging what he's saying and trying to, change it,
Yeah. So it's interesting because, and this was minor in comparison to what Pitino said, but I remember just 2 weeks ago, when Coach McCaffrey was at the podium and they had a chance to come back, and I think it was Minnesota, and maybe it's personal because I know Josh Dix, but he was like, when Josh Dix gets a rebound and he throws it to their guy, and if we just make a simple, inbounds or an outlet pass, and I was thinking, gosh, I don't know, he called my guy by name, right? So I was I paused it, but then I thought about it relative to what he was saying, and I was like, well, he kind of moved on. He didn't harp on it. But then I hear yesterday, and I was like, oh, Fran, that was nothing. At least he didn't go Pitino.
Right. I think the big thing with whether we talk about what Matt Rhule says publicly on a Monday press conference, the most important thing is what is said face to face to the players.
Yeah.
From the coach, that
is it the first time they've heard it?
Yeah. I mean, if that is the first time Josh Dix has been called out about maybe, turning things over on an outlet pass or whatever, or just anything of that nature, then I think it's going to land different. But I just always, I don't know. I mean, certainly things have changed dramatically in the way quotes circulate and the way press conferences get shared. But I can't ever really remember what Dana Altman or Bill Self said in a press conference.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly always remember what
that's a good point,
or what they told the team. So I'm not saying it doesn't matter because certainly public messaging, and we got a really good one in Nebraska and Matt Rhule and what he preaches and talks about. But I don't know. I mean, I think oftentimes you need to understand what's being said in that locker room from coach to player. That still is the most important stream of communication.
We're talking with Nick Bahe. He is a college basketball analyst for Fox Sports 1, hosts the Nick Bahe podcast, of course, Chick and Nick podcast as well. Nick, I'm curious what you thought as you kind of watched that Marquette getting beat down by UConn on Saturday. Is that because my guy over here thinks Marquette's maybe a little bit?
Well, I've been on the anti-Marquette
Maybe a
train
little
for a
bit of
while.
an imposter. Do you think that says more about DB's opinion on Marquette, that they're maybe a little inflated, or does that kind of tell you more about, UConn's really kind of that guy?
I would say in the moment as I was watching it, I felt like I was more like, man, look at UConn.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look at these guys. Look how connected they are. But that doesn't necessarily mean that DB's not on the right track. Like, there just has felt like at times there's been a little something missing with Marquette. And I don't. What the easy thing to point to is like, well, Omax Prosper. They don't have him, and that's the difference. Like, I don't know if like you plug him in, if it changes everything. I wonder if when you play the emotional, no one believes in us card, like that is your rallying cry, and that's what gets you out of. That's what gets you to lace them up and compete. Like when that's not there, what else do you have to kind of rally around? And so sometimes they seem like they're missing a little something intangibly, which sounds bizarre. I've always felt like I felt like this with the Creighton team that went to the Sweet 16. Sometimes when you return everybody, you understand what goes into the process, but you get bored with the process. Mm-hmm. You just want to fast forward to when it really is real in March. Like you just want to. I think I had an analogy a couple years ago with like you're playing Mario Brothers or you're playing a video game and you can have like I think in Sega there was like a code you could type in that got Sonic all the way to the final level. And so you bypassed everything that got to that final level to beat the game. And sometimes I wonder if Marquette's a little bit in that mode where they just want to get back to the NCAA tournament and they need to kind of get back invested into the process of it. But at the same time, they had won 8 in a row heading into that game. UConn has made a lot of teams look bad in their home building, including Creighton. So I don't know. I'm not ready to sound the alarm on Marquette, but I think UConn is really good, which is I thought they'd be really good, but man, I mean, to lose their 3 best players and be back where they're at. I mean, Dan Hurley does a hell of a job. That team plays tough. That team plays with a purpose. That team plays unselfish. Like there is a clear-cut style when you're watching them play that Dan Hurley is all over that team.
Nick, where do you put Creighton's chances of knocking off that team in Omaha tomorrow? Because as you said, I mean, I agree with everything you said about them as far as how scary they look. Obviously, home versus away has been a big narrative of the entire college basketball season. But where is the path to victory for Creighton tomorrow, if there is one?
Well, I definitely think there is one. First of all, I really think Creighton is. Even though I said this to Coach McDermott at the Georgetown shoot-around, they were what they had been like. They had lost a couple. They had lost at Providence, and they lost to Butler at home. And I was like, I kind of like how you're playing. He was like, me too. and that's the thing you got to remember. Is like, yes, you want to win games, but you want to be improving this time of year.
Yeah.
And I think. Like, if you look at the numbers, I was looking at them last night. The first 7 Big East games, Creighton averaged 67 points per game. The last 8 Big East games, Creighton averages 87 points per game. Now, there's a couple of overtimes in there that inflated, but I still think you guys get the point. And if you don't believe me, go check Ken Palm's offensive efficiency.
Yeah.
Like, Creighton's got a top 20 offense. I just like how they're playing offensively. And I think a big part of that is Stephen Ashworth has really taken a big step forward. He's playing a lot more confident. So the path to victory, Ravi, to me is like you have to be able to handle the physicality from the UConn defense, the pressure. If you try to remember what that game looked like a couple of weeks ago at UConn, Creighton just got punked. They were on their heels. They got pressed out. It was hard for them to even enter offense. Mm-hmm. So I think because Creighton's in a better place offensively and they're a little bit better at getting in the open floor at home, I just think they're going to be able to have a little bit more success offensively. And because of how they've been playing, not to mention Baylor Shireman, who is just on a holy crap run here. Like, this guy is playing incredible. So, I mean, the path to victory is handling the ball, handling the pressure. I feel like Creighton's in a better spot. So I think they got a really good opportunity to give UConn all they want tomorrow night.
Yeah, I want to stay with Baylor here real quick, just because we got into it last week and the week before. You know, we were just talking about the triple-double in his game. And I just said this with Frankie Fidler, watching his body, right? He's got muscles and kind of some striations in his arms where you can see Baylor Shireman's body looks 100% better than it did a year ago. And even though he's older, he actually looks a lot more explosive and sudden. Like, how much of a credit should we be giving Creighton's strength and conditioning program, which quietly is pretty good? We've seen a lot of the soft tissue stuff go away over the last couple of years. Yeah. Baylor's body looks fantastic.
Looks awesome, doesn't it? And it makes a huge difference. I've always said, like, changing your body is a window into how all in you are, because some of that stuff takes place outside of when you're in the facility. It's turning down pizza at night. It's making good decisions, eating. It's getting your rest. Like, all the things. It's easy to be all in the time where you're at practice or you're in the weight room. But oftentimes you really want to change your body. It's a 24/7, 365 thing. And so to me, one of the first things that popped after I didn't see Baylor Shireman for a couple of months in the offseason, when I saw him at practice, I was like, damn, he looks great.
Yeah.
And when you look at how he's played, I mean, he's had 3 or 4, like, I'm talking in traffic
dunks, yeah,
hammer dunks on people that I don't think he was doing that a year ago.
Well, the one the other night, he used his right hand too.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, left-handed dude, right hand in, like, that is impressive. And I think a part of what has helped his game is I think he certainly can make that little tough spin fall away 15-footer, but he's done a better job of getting all the way to the rim to finish. And I think you can attribute a lot of that to his body. And I also think there's something too, whether it's real or not, when you're in the weight room and you're busting it, and all of a sudden you start to see gains. All of a sudden your max bench goes up 10, 15 pounds, and you're feeling stronger. All that does is fill your confidence cup. And basketball is a confidence sport. So whether or not Baylor Shireman, I don't know, doing curls and tricep dips and stuff, how much that impacts his ability to come up a ball screen and make a read, who knows? But I know that he feels like when he looks in the mirror, he sees a badass. And that makes a difference. So I think he is. I released a pod this morning. I state the case that I think it's time to start having a real conversation about Baylor Shireman as the Big East Player of the Year. I think it's him, it's Carter, it's Kolek, and it's Newton. To me, it's those 4 guys. And at this point, I would give the nod to Shireman slightly ahead of Devin Carter. I think where things shake out in the standings will make a difference. But I've just been so impressed. You know, Shireman, number 3 in scoring, number 2 in rebounds, leads the Big East in double-doubles. He's 10th in assists. He's 2nd in minutes. I mean, the guy has been a warrior this year.
I think this is a good debate because I kind of wanted to go national, or we are going to go national anyway. But I tried to make the case last week that Newton should be maybe not, and I'm glad you mentioned Tristan. I think he could make the case for Player of the Year. When I look at, and I love the guys you mentioned. No disrespect, right? Especially with level of importance to their team. But given UConn's versatility and the number of moving parts they have, he's still the guy that makes them. He's still the guy that makes them go. He's something else.
Well, I mean, Damon, think about it. Like, every situation is different. Like, the situation Devin Carter's in at Providence is not even close to the same situation Tristan Newton is in at UConn.
Good point.
Like, Carter has to do everything.
He's the easy, fun guy, like, where it's like, oh, yeah, that's obvious. But, like, totally, I'm with you.
You know what I mean? I mean, I think in some ways, and I even, I can call myself out in this as I'm making the case for or against everybody. Like, Tristan Newton is somewhat of a victim of how balanced and good his team is.
Yeah.
When you watch UConn play, there's no doubt that Newton is the dude that makes it all go. But when you watch UConn, you're like, wow, this team is is one, the more of the totality of it all than it is when you're watching Providence and you're like, look at this dude, Devin Carter. Like, this guy's getting every rebound. This guy's making every play. You know what I mean? Like, so it's different situations trying to compare it to. I'm sure it's maybe a little analogous. I don't know if you have anybody off the top of your head, Damon, that like, okay, yeah, anybody can get, a $192 on the ground when they're getting 27 carries and they're
on a local level, he's Anthony Rizak. We have a lot of good players.
There you go.
A lot of good players, but Anthony is the guy that kind of it's got to start there.
Yeah,
for all that everybody else is doing, it's Anthony.
Totally agree. But no, I'm with you. Christian Newton's a stud. Yeah, I mean, he deserves every accolade that he gets. If any of those four dudes got named Player of the Year, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. Like you can make it like Kolik's numbers, they're all up. Every one of them, like points per game up, 3-point percentage up, rebounds up.
Yeah.
And like everything's up, and yet we're like, we saw him do it last year, so it's not as exciting as it was.
And he actually hit a little bit of a lull a couple of weeks ago, and it was like, oh, maybe the league's catching up to him. Nah,
Right.
that wasn't it.
I don't know. That dude is a foxhole dude. Man. He's a tough player.
Let me ask you about Nebraska, because Coach Hoiberg said something the other day, and he was talking about in the press conference, and he's actually one of those guys who's been a little bit more open, I think, to critiquing his team. He hasn't he'll say some names, And the other day he was talking about Casey's shot selection. He says, even when Casey has some of those bad shots, and when he's going, that's kind of what makes him him. When he's not, it's like we got to find other options. And we've seen him sit some key guys in some spots. How much do you think Coach Hoiberg and how he realizes he's got options to play a couple of different ways has freed him up to coach these guys pretty hard?
That's a great point, Damon. I mean, it really is, because that nothing motivates quite like that bench. I mean, when you think back to like the Bryce McGowan, the Alonzo Birds team, like those guys could do whatever they wanted, good or bad, any shot they wanted, don't rotate from the deep, and it didn't matter. They were coming out, or they were staying in the game. This year, that's not the case. And I mean, you saw it against Wisconsin. Casey Tominaga didn't have it going. Well, guess what? CJ Wilcher is gonna come in and play the rest of the game. Yeah. And the bench, just the different ways they can play. I mean, look at the starting lineup right now. They go Bryce Williams, 6'6", 6'7". Then they do have Tominaga, but then it's Gary, all of 6'6", 6'7". Rink Mass, 6'10". Josiah Allen, 6'10". So they can play big, but then they go small. They do lineups of Sam Hoiberg, CJ Wilcher, Casey Tominaga. They threw Bryce Williams out there and Rink Mass. And all of a sudden you got a smaller lineup out there. So you have options, which I think is really, really helped this team in a lot of different ways, not only tangibly with changing the complexion of games with guys off the bench, but intangibly to what you're kind of hinting at of, listen, if you're not going to do the little things, you are going to sit. And I think that is something that, as much as anything else, has changed over the course of the last couple of years at Nebraska basketball, is they are starting to invest in and believe in the details of the game. And the only way those details really kind of get enforced is that if you don't do them, there's a price to pay.
Yeah.
And there is one right now. There's no doubt about it.
Nick, I have kind of a strange question for you here from the national perspective. So bear with me, but who is the worst team that's currently that you think can win a national title? Because you obviously have your UConn, Purdue's,
Auburn.
But is there a team that's like, man, I don't necessarily love how they play, or maybe they're not having the season I thought they would, but man, I could kind of see that team making a run.
Damn, that's a hard question. You know what's weird is a part of me wants to say Kansas.
Because of their bench?
Just because of how thin they are. Yeah, their bench, they really have they got four great players, but they do have flaws. I just don't. When you watch Kansas play, they you don't necessarily get the feeling like you felt in years past in watching a Bill Self team play, where they're just like they check all the boxes that you could want.
Mm-hmm.
Just as you were asking that question, Ravi, my first thought was KU, just because of like they do have glaring flaws. They're not a good 3-point shooting team. They're not deep. They really struggle to handle the ball outside of DeJuan Harris. Hunter Dickinson is limited defensively. They used to be able to have this. Now they've shown it in spurts, but the team that won the title, the Ochai Agbaji, Christian Brown, Jalen Wilson team, like they had a level they could go to defensively where they just could like turn it up and like foil you, and it was done. And I don't know if this team has that in its arsenal frequently, but a part of me wants to say Kansas just because of how flawed they are. But at the same time, their 4 best players are big time.
As good as anybody. Yeah.
For me, does it seem like Duke is 20-5? And I'm an ACC honk, right? So I watch them a ton, but it's like, it's not how is Duke good, but I'm kind of like, how are they 20-5? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know, and maybe I'm just like I catch them on games where they don't really have their A game, but I'm totally with you. Like I watched them play at Carolina, and I'm just left like, really? Like that's all. That's it. Like I don't feel like you can, because there are times a team can play bad, but you still see it.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I'm with you on Duke. I think the team that if I had to flip it, a team that is like that every time I watch them play, I feel like, damn, I kind of like that team, and yet they're not necessarily always in people's projected Final Fours because they certainly have a lot of other things going on for them. Is Illinois. Like Illinois is a team. For me, whenever I watch them play, I like them.
I would make the case for Shannon. I mean, and Ravi, he made me hit default because I don't think I get it. Edie will probably be Player of the Year. I don't think he should be, but Terrence Shannon, like he's on a heater, and when they get going, and Illinois is, and I get it, Michigan State just got, but like that's a good basketball. They have a lot of good pieces.
I think Domask is awesome.
Hey, and like, he's crafty too, isn't he?
Yes, and in Coleman Hawkins, when it's right, that guy is
can stretch you.
Unicorn. He can stretch you. He can bring it up the floor. He can pass. Ty Rodgers is maybe the toughest dude in college basketball right now. Like, can't shoot a lick, but it's like you can't take him off the floor. Luke Goody can shoot it. Like, they're a team, depending on their path, that I would take a good hard look at taking them potentially to Phoenix. I like how I like the makeup of their team, but I just don't. And the reason I brought that up, and maybe it's all matters on what you're consuming or who you're talking about. I just don't hear a lot of people talk about Illinois being a Final Four team, and maybe that is because of some of the stuff that happened with Shannon, and people kind of wrote them off.
Sure,
I think it's coached. Like in our sphere, I think it's coaching.
Okay, that could be. That certainly could be. But yeah, I like that team a lot. I really do.
That's Nick Bahe. He
Fantastic.
is an analyst for FS1. He's also got the Nick Bahe podcast. He's got the Schick and Nick podcast. He also runs Shoot 360 down in Lincoln. You might.
I love the promos
busy.
coming out of the break when you had the Nebraska call and they were like doing.
How about that?
Oh, I wanted to say something, but I knew you were working. I was like, I caught that. Well done,
pretty cool.
Nick. We appreciate it as always, man.
Thanks, guys. Great to talk.
That's Nick Bahe. Hopefully, we will catch up with him again soon. Coming up next, the Warhorse Sportsbook Sports Cleanup here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. It's time for the Warhorse Sportsbook Sports Cleanup, brought to you by the Warhorse Sportsbook. DB is not going to put his headset back on, so it's fine. I guess we'll just do this by myself over here. No big deal, as Doc would say. What is a big deal is the fact that you can place your sports bets at Warhorse Sportsbook, either in Lincoln or in Omaha at Horseman's Park, 6303 Q Street. You've got nearly every major sporting event available to you and all kinds of different bets, straight bets, parlays, props, live in-game bets as well. Make sure you go to warhorsecasino.com/sportsbook or get the Warhorse Casino app for a full list of house rules and any details you may need as well. Warhorse Sportsbook, no bets, no glory. As we, no, we're not going.
What up, Sam?
As we already talked to Sam today, as we kind of clean up some of the things, A, from the show and B, from the weekend. Anything we've missed so far from the weekend you wanna hit on?
We got wrestling. We got baseball.
We got a lot of wrestling today.
Women's hoops. Women's hoops may be in a better spot than
the men's side. For who? Nebraska or Creighton or both?
Nebraska. And women, are they 12 o'clock today? I think they got UConn today.
They're early.
It's either 11 or 12. Shane, are you on? Is it weird? There's not very many sports I don't pay attention to. I think they tip at like 11 or 12 today.
Yeah, it helps when you don't sleep ever to be able to.
I'm trying to get better. I just got some and on a humbug. It's called Core 21.
Okay.
Great number. I haven't tried it yet. First of all, I'm afraid to get hooked. You ever go through
Yeah.
But yeah, I probably do need to work on that.
So it's 11 a.m. It's 12 Eastern. So it's
Okay.
12 a.m. local. They're at UConn.
Yeah.
Creighton women's basketball on an 11-game win streak, I believe.
Yeah, something's got to give.
They are a loss was to UConn here in Omaha, where Creighton laid an egg. There's no other way around that. They did not play well, but they're 21-3 on the year. If you're not paying attention, Jim Flannery's got this thing rolling pretty good here.
And I don't know if he saw 21-3, but we knew that they had some firepower coming back of a team that maximized from a year ago. But it's a really, really, really good basketball team. And he's upped the athleticism.
Yes, he has, that's kind of been the differentiator between a lot of the teams they've played in the past.
Yes, indeed.
Where they struggle when they go, like last year, they played a Stanford team that kind of smothered them with size and athleticism that they couldn't really deal with.
Yeah.
That's been the big differentiator with UConn a lot of times. When they made their Elite Eight run, who'd they lose to? South Carolina, I think. They can beat an Iowa, right? Where they knock off a team that, you're going skill for skill, but South Carolina came in, overwhelmed them athletically. He's gotten better. And I assume everybody is, but I'm a huge Jim Flannery guy.
Me too.
I
He's
love that.
The
dude.
nicest, maybe the nicest. Well, he's certainly the nicest person in the Omaha metro area.
One of the nicer people.
Competing with about 450,000 other people, not including, all the annexation. But you want to know how you mentioned
annexation
Iowa?
of Puerto Rico?
Yes, it's a heck of a play. You want to know? We were talking about Caitlin Clark and crossing over into mainstream, and I think it was Jesse that hit us with the coverage.
Yeah,
you know how you officially make it to the big time.
How's that?
You become the conversation of a knockdown drag out of a North Omaha barbershop.
Did that happen?
45 minutes talking about Caitlin Clark.
What was
a couple of guys that were waiting had to go outside and take a break. You have to go
I need a minute.
And I'm in the chair, so I'm just laughing.
Yeah.
So it's because I can't move too much.
Sure, yeah. You don't want to get something squirrely there. So what was the topic that got everybody so heated?
It was several. It was we started out in terms of whether she should stay in school. Is her NIL deal more than
probably?
Than the WNBA, and
their salaries have gotten better, but it's not what she can make in college.
What it's meant for sports, and then there's a business. He's a young guy.
We just saw from Paige Becker's coming back to UConn.
I know. Caleb said it in the back seat. He goes, "Man, how long is she going to stay there?" And I said, "She's probably played like the equivalent of 2 full seasons, if that."
Yeah, maybe.
She's been hurt.
She's banged up for 2 years.
Then, of course, Micah got on him, so I was like, we should start that conversation. But then it morphed into what level of men's college basketball. Somebody said, and it was just getting outrageous, right? We heard D3, D2, NAIA, and I was like, in my head, and I try not to be, it depends on how much I care, how much I want to put myself out there, because it always turns into DB said.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So I'm kind of just listening. And then it went to, is she a better player than Taurasi? And then my barber threw out some comps of some non-guards like Kara Walters and Maya Moore.
Okay.
Although you could call Maya Moore I don't know about guard, but like different spots. And could she guard? It was fascinating.
Yeah.
On,
you think
on All-Star weekend.
You think she is better than Taurasi?
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
That was what you said last week. I wasn't trying to put words in your mouth. I was trying to make sure I recall.
I
correctly.
do. And you're talking to somebody like I'm not Matt DeMarinis, but I love women's basketball.
Yeah. Maddie is, who we'll talk to tomorrow, is as deep in women's hoops as anybody I know.
I think she's better.
That's probably fair. I mean, I think that's
and not playing with as good of players either.
Oh, for sure. Taurasi kind of had the Alabama quarterback situation of women's basketball.
And she's sensational. Make no mistake about it. You don't play 55 years at that level and not be a good player.
Absolutely.
55 is a little bit.
Long time, though. She's been a pro for a long time.
Yeah.
Right. But you're right. Caitlin Clark has a lot less help in terms of what's going on there.
She's legit, man.
It really is. She's fun to watch. I mean, she's more fun to watch than the NBA All-Star game was.
Ravi Lulla for out on the NBA All-Star game.
It's just bad.
Yeah.
I don't like bad basketball one way or another. It's the reason that I was kind of a hater on Nebraska basketball for a long time, because they just played bad basketball. It wasn't anything personal. I'm not going to sit there and watch crap basketball. They don't play bad basketball anymore. And guess what? I'm here for it. Right? This is not rocket science. Even when they were good under Tim Miles, it was crap basketball. Aesthetically.
I want to ask you something that you asked Nick that I think is interesting.
Okay.
And this is on the heels of watching. Well, they made a run late, but I keep hearing about FAU and now granted they ran into a buzzsaw yesterday, South Florida, and a team that is shot the heck out of the ball. I think I watched them between the 3 hours in between Micah's game, I think they made 8 or 9 threes, and I was kind of talking, kind of watching. So maybe I missed one
in there, but they were.
But I know they scored on like 10 or 11 straight possessions.
Yeah,
in the first half. But having said that, like the best team, you tried to convince me off air about Michigan State.
I was asking. I wasn't trying to convince. I was asking. I was curious what you thought of Michigan State, because I look at Michigan State and I go, okay, this is a team that was really highly thought of coming into the year.
Preseason
top five, like top 3 or 4, I think. They obviously got off to a terrible start. Everybody sort of forgot about them, and now you mentioned
Do you think they can win it? Yeah, I think they've won. Is it 11 out of 14?
It's certainly 8 out of 10.
It's something like that.
I didn't go further back than 8 out of 10, but it's at least 8 out of 10. They're playing good basketball right now. Yeah, it might be better than that.
Although they sleptwalked through Michigan.
So they've won 12 of their last 16. So they're playing pretty good ball right now. They were 5-5, and now they're 17-9. So they're playing good ball.
I don't know if I look at them as can win a championship.
And that was kind of my question, right? Is they're definitely, I could see them making a run.
And let's be generous.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
For the sake of this discussion.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know if they're
like, if you told me you could see Gonzaga winning a national championship, that's too generous.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say
but
that.
If you wanted to convince me of,
you keep bringing up Auburn. You like Auburn.
No, I don't. I just couldn't believe that they were ranked as high as they were.
So you don't think they can win a national championship?
And I get it. They're 7 in the net.
Yeah.
I think I haven't looked.
They're top 10.
Okay, let's say they're 7 or 8 in the net.
Them and Alabama are right next to each other.
And I get it. The conference strength is crazy, but I watched them against Kentucky, and I'm like, how'd you get bullied at home against a team that's kind of trying to find themselves still?
Kentucky?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not in on Kentucky.
Do you think FAU can win a title?
No.
Well, this is the team that they made the run last year. I don't know if you heard.
I don't recall. Is that a thing? Did that happen?
I do like Davis, though. He's a handful.
No, like I like certain
I'll give you another one.
Who?
Because I hear about him every year.
Who?
Every year.
Who?
And I know Lloyd can recruit. Can Arizona win a national championship? They could, right? They don't look like it, though.
I'm never gonna say anybody with Caleb Love as an intricate part of that.
Hey.
I was
easy on the Carolina hate.
I'm not hating because he was Carolina. I didn't like Carolina because he was there.
Shot selection sucks.
Yeah, we'll continue this conversation as we wrap up the show next. Wrapping up the show here on a Monday on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities in KFOR and Lincoln. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla, and we are brought to you by our friends at the Team Jack Foundation. the 11th annual Team Jack Gala presented by Fat Brain Toys is coming up. It's this Saturday, February 24th in Lincoln. There are many great auction items up for bid. Visit teamjackfoundation.org to participate. Teamjackfoundation.org to participate. You can also just donate directly to Team Jack Foundation from the website. You can see all their events and everything going on. Teamjackfoundation.org to find out more or to participate and figure out how you can be a part of the 11th annual Team Jack Gala. Wanted to stay on that conversation we were having about kind of the worst teams that we think. It's such a weird thing it's a weird qualifier, right? Yeah. But I just kind of had this in my head since last week, and we didn't get to it because it was coming off the Super Bowl and a lot of stuff going on last week. But
did you ever get to your Super Bowl question?
No, we didn't. I gave up on it. I'm just gonna sprinkle them over.
You could be all right.
I'm just gonna sprinkle them over the next 3 months of Hurrdat hot seat questions, and so I'll just throw like a Super Bowl question out randomly. Like, was that Kyle Shanahan's fault? We're gonna ask you that in like April sometime.
Yes.
But okay, well, we're done. We got that one out of the way.
Yes.
I just find it interesting because there's obviously a couple teams we've been talking about a lot in UConn and Purdue. You're a little higher on Purdue than I am.
I don't want to be. I just feel like they're due.
Are they Purdue?
Don't say that again. How about that?
Don't you sad trombone me, Shane. But outside of those teams, so I was like, okay, who else can actually win this thing? And that sort of led me down the path of like, well, who's the worst team that could win this? And over the break, we kind of landed on maybe Iowa State as maybe the line, right? Iowa State, and listen, they're really well regarded in like KenPom and net rankings and stuff like that. But if I just told you, yeah, Iowa State's winning the national title, you're like, I don't know.
Well, I'll give you one that I think is in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
And they have a guy that I think should be considered for player of the year.
Okay. I
like Dayton.
Okay. So do you think Dayton can win a national title?
6 in a row. I could see Dayton being a 4 or 5.
They probably need to get to a 4 to have a realistic shot.
I'm with you.
To feel good.
Well, Iowa State's only 6-4 again. What'd I say? 6-4 against in quad one?
I think that's what you said. Yeah.
But then again, South Carolina's 21-3. So what do I know?
South Carolina just lost this weekend too.
They got hammered.
Yeah. Of course, so Purdue. I mean, not hammered, but Purdue lost to. They had the fired coach effect with Ohio State.
I didn't know that was a thing in basketball.
I didn't either. That's why I didn't.
I still don't think it's a thing. That might be it for Deebs, but
yeah,
but I agree with Sam though. They have good players.
Yeah, I think for that situation, it might be a thing. They may have just sort of tuned out Holtman, and another voice comes in the room, and you kind of maybe
4 out of 6 years he was in the NCAA tournament, and one that he wasn't was
COVID. Yeah. And then last year they were 16-19, but they were really bad in conference. They were trending the wrong direction. Yeah. I don't know. Again,
they needed Chris Gent. I'm just they needed. Do you know how long ago that was?
They needed Greg McDermott.
Chris Gent might have been. Did Gent play with?
I'm gonna be honest. I don't even know who that is. Chris Gent. Yeah. That name is not ringing any bells for me.
He played with. Who was his backcourt mate? Was it Jim Jackson?
At Ohio State?
Yeah.
Was that mid-90s?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. That
lefty, buzz cut. You don't remember Chris Gent?
Not really. I don't remember. I
just pulled that's random. If I'd have said like Lawrence Funderburk, would you have?
Yeah, I know Funderburk. Yeah.
Even though that's old too.
Yeah. But there's like my radius on older stuff is not as it's more hit and miss.
Okay.
But like I remember Funderburk.
Okay, so I could go Vincent Hamilton?
Yeah, I know Vincent Hamilton.
Okay, that's late 90s,
yeah.
mid-90s.
Yeah.
Is that about it?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
It's a little hit and miss in the 90s for college basketball. My college basketball really picks up about 2000. I was like middle school.
Roll it like the normal ride.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can do baseball back to like early 90s.
Yeah.
I feel pretty good there. College football, I can go back to about
NBA. You have range.
Yeah. I NBA, I can go back pretty deep. College football, I can go back to early mid 90s.
But you said something last week that I thought was on the surface nutty.
Yeah.
And then I took about 10 seconds and I was like, you know what? You're probably right.
Which one? What was that?
You said, could I convince you that Peter Warwick was ahead of his time?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I will die on that hill.
And Peter Warwick was sensational.
So good. They didn't know how to use him in the NFL.
Yeah, they considered him small and he got knocked around.
Yeah, if you could.
Now those guys just play in the slot.
Yeah, if you would just line up, instead of trying to make him Randy Moss, if you just line him up in the slot and let him be a way more talented Wes Welker, Danny Amendola, whoever you want to put in there.
Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, Peter Warwick is 1,000,000% more talented than Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, I was a weird thing to say, like right at first. And I was like, yeah, you know what? You're probably right.
I will die on that hill. Peter Warwick was so good.
Unreal.
So good.
But let's go back to I'm still mad at you guys for telling me that Nebraska's out.
If they don't win a road game, they are.
Because of the bad loss. Just say that. It would be a bad loss to Michigan.
I don't even think it's a resume
thing. It is too.
It's not a resume thing.
Okay. So this is what you're saying conversely.
Yeah.
That winning Michigan is a feather in the cap.
No.
Okay, then it's about the bad loss.
No, I'm not saying that.
You can't have it both ways, Ray.
Sure, I can.
You can't.
Yeah, I can. Why not?
It's more the bad loss.
No, it is more the narrative of not winning any road games.
All right.
That's the problem.
Right.
Because if you lose that Michigan game earlier in the season, but you've got other road wins, like let's say they knock off. Let's say they get the Rutgers and the.
So
Minnesota.
that's really the problem is that all these games are hiccup. They're like, oh my gosh, games. They're not qualifiers. They're not validating Nebraska.
No,
they're just not.
It is.
So it's the bad loss.
No, it's an argument you can use against them. If
it's
all else
only
is equal,
because we want it to be, not because we have good sense. It's just become the narrative.
No, but that's the problem. Is it has become the narrative, but it has become the narrative for the committee too. They have ears.
They should know better.
They should.
More the bad loss.
They should know better. But listen to what Sam said. They haven't put in a team that hasn't won a conference road game.
That's the empirical data, and I understand that.
So if that's what
that's like, so that you're like one of those guys that tells me that the second guy always gets caught. Well, he doesn't have to. It's because that's what we think is cool.
I don't think it's cool. I'm just saying if that is what the committee has shown they're going to do, then it doesn't matter if Michigan's a good loss, bad loss, or indifferent. If they cannot find a way.
What if Michigan was at a neutral site? What if they played them in what if they played them at
if they still haven't won a conference road game, it doesn't matter.
So if
Nebraska has to win a conference road game.
So if they went over to like if they played a neutral site game at ODU.
At Old Dominion.
We cool?
No, it doesn't matter.
Listen to the question.
Yeah.
If they played Michigan.
Yeah.
At a neutral site, let's say it's Old Dominion.
Okay.
And they win.
Okay.
You feel validated?
Validated in what?
You feel like that's the quantifier, like that's the blue check mark that Nebraska needs to say, oh, that's a tournament team.
No.
Okay.
They have to win on the road.
It is on the road.
No, it's neutral. Neutral and on the road are not the same thing.
Okay.
You're away from home. I get technically you are on the road in the literal sense, but it's not
what I want to hear you say is it's a narrative. Whether I believe Nebraska is a tournament team or not, it is more about not having any more bad losses because that's what these remaining games are. And two of them happen to be on the road.
I understand that these would be bad losses. But my point is if you switch these with...
So I shouldn't expect that they watch the game at Illinois? Is that too much to ask of the committee?
I don't think it should be too much to ask, but I do think the narrative is more important than
because they've gotten blown out on the road.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
I feel like I kind of feel like I'm spoon feeding you. I'd like for you to kind of put me in my place, and I'm just not hearing it.
I think
I'm
they
not hearing
watched Illinois. I also think they watched at Northwestern, where they did get their brains beat in.
Oh, so Northwestern is now Northwestern is your qualifier for a bad blowout home loss.
I am not.
We just talked about with Bahe how Northwestern's
I don't have
on a
any
heater.
qualifiers on road losses or not. My qualifier is they don't have any road wins. That's the only qualifier I'm talking about.
Okay.
That's what it is. You have to have a road win, and they don't right now. If they had won one earlier in the season, I care a lot less about the games that are left.
So just the one, huh?
I mean, 2 would be nice, but you have to have one.
Do you understand how that sounds to say out loud? It is so punitive.
I get that, but
Hey,
the committee,
just one,
the committee
and all of a
has
sudden
been
I'm
punitive.
swayed. Just one, and I'm swayed.
I'm trying to put myself in the mind of the committee,
Be better.
and they have been punitive.
Be better. That's what I'm saying.
Tell that to the committee.
I can't. I don't know those guys.
Well, give them a call. See if we can find them out.
888-638.
That's the show for today. We'll see if we're back tomorrow. That's DB. I'm Ravi with Hurrdat Sports Radio.